Hello and welcome. Glad you could join us for the show tonight.
All the regular crew is here. Mike Shevlin and the news team. Of course, Eamonn Kelly will have the sports for us.
And Martin Hayes is spare no expense giving us top quality musical entertainment.
Tonight, Martin presents Blarney Pilgrim, a band from Minnesota which is playing here at the Abbey. We're going to have a tune from them right now here on Irish Television Chicago.
Blarney Pilgrim were formed when Sean O'Driscoll, the only Irish member of the group, moved from Cork to the United States.
They are a band with a difference. Their musical roots include jazz, country, and contemporary music, as well as traditional. Now, they've managed to blend these diverse styles into a unique sound, which has made them the successful, live, and much recorded band they are today. Let's take a listen.
Come all ye young girls who are anxious for courting, a word of advice I will give unto thee. Go down to Bantir to the Athletic Sports Club, hand in your name to the sports committee. But do not complete any part of your program till a carriage you see coming over the hills, flying through the hills and the dales of Kilcorny, with the Muskerry sportsman, the bold Teddy Quill. For rambling, for roving, for football and sporting, for drinking black porter as fast as you fill. In all your days roving you'll find, and so jovial as a Muskerry sportsman, the bold Teddy Quill. At the Cork exhibition there was a fair lady whose fortunes exceeded $1 million or more, but a bad constitution had ruined her completely. Medical treatment had failed or Oh mama, she cried, sure I know what will cure me, heal this disease that is threatening to kill. Give over your doctors, your medical treatments, I'd rather one squeeze from the bold Teddy Quill. For rambling, for roving, for football and sporting, for drinking black porter as fast as you fill. In all your days roving you'll find, and so jovial as a Muskerry sportsman, the bold Teddy Quill. at the great hurling match between Cork and Tipperary was played in the park by the banks of the Lee. But our own darling boys, they were slow in performing, so they sent for Bold Tatey to Ballinagree. He hurled the ball right and left in their faces, showing the Tipperary boys hurling and skill. When the game it was over, he went out on their shoulders, and the papers were full of the fame of Bold Quill. For rambling, for roving, for football and sporting, for drinking black porter as fast as you fill. In all your days roving you'll find, and so jovial as a Muskerry sportsman, the Bold Tatey Quill. In the year 91, before Parnell was taken, old Tade was outrageously breaking the peace. He got a light sentence for causing commotion and 6 months hard labor for beating police. But in spite of it all, he's still agitating. Every drop of his life's blood he's willing to spill to gain for old Ireland complete liberation. Till then there's no rest for me, Bold Tatey Quill. For rowing, for football and sporting, for drinking black porter as fast as you fill. In all your days roving you'll find, and so jovial that's a Muskerry sportsman, the Bold Tatey Quill. For rambling, for rowing, for football and sporting, for drinking black porter as fast as you fill. In all your days roving you'll find, and so jovial as the Muskerry sportsman, the Bold Tatey Quill.
You know, one thing that's always fascinated me is the colorful names that enhance Irish traditional tunes. Blarney Pilgrim, for example, opened with a song with the bizarre title, The Hag at the Churn. And just before the commercial, we heard the Bold Tatey Quill.
Yeah, I think music is so much a part of Irish life that you're bound to find a tune written about every incident, Steve.
Indeed we are, Tom. Well, the man to fill us in on all that information is our expert in that area, our musical director, Martin Hayes. Tonight, Martin's guests are Sean and Mary McEachran O'Driscoll of Blarney Pilgrim.
Thank you, Steve. We're sitting here with two of the members of Blarney Pilgrim. We're sitting with Sean O'Driscoll and his wife Mary, who are just in from Minneapolis to play some music for us. So we're going to ask Sean and Mary some questions about their music and where they picked up all this wonderful music that they play for us. So,
a lot of it up in Clare, Martin.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Well, Sean comes from Blarney, and you've heard of the gift of the gab that people acquire down around there by kissing the Blarney Stone and what, so we're going to test Sean on this, and we're going to...
Well, it's basically, you know, it's the kissing capital of the world, Blarney, you know. Just, you know, to set you straight a bit in that there.
Well, that's some of the Blarney anyway. But Sean, you started off playing music at an early age. Your father and your uncle, you had the O'Driscoll Kelly Band. And tell us the lineup and what it was.
Well, the setup was like, you know, it was kind of, they all played the accordion, all the brothers, and the, you know, for the band purposes, then they had a drummer, and the usual carry on with the Kelly Band, you know, and the saxophone. Dick used to play the reels and sax, like,
yeah.
You know, the whole job, like.
Yeah.
But that was it, like, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of traditional music around Blarney or anything like that. There were a few good players, like John McNally was a great player from Sligo. He used to come over all the time and play the fiddle. Barry Looney's another man, plays the flute. There's a good, like, there's a few musicians around, you know, but it wouldn't be like, you know, it's few and far between, and you'd have to kind of search it out a bit, like, if you wanted to do that, you know.
Well, Mary, you started off with the Minneapolis Kelly Band, was it, or?
The Northern Star Kelly.
Northern Star Kelly Band. no, you started picking up music a few years ago, isn't that right?
Yeah, it's getting to be a good few years now. There was originally in the scene in Minneapolis, St. Paul, there was about 5 or 6 of us that were the entire Irish music scene at that time. The only people that were interested. There's one old-time traditional player there from Roscommon, a man named Martin McHugh, and it was like 4 or 5 of us and Martin, and we became a band because there was no one else, and the dancers demanded that there'd be a band. So for about 7 years, Laura McKenzie, who plays in Blarney Pilgrim, was also in Northern Star.
Yeah. You just wear a cast when you're playing the fiddle. It's just for effect,
this
isn't
is
it?
my fingerless cement glove.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it gives you the extra weight on the board. It makes it sound good, isn't that right?
No, well, I guess I'd trade it in. You know, I'd get rid of it if I could.
It's just like an anchor, you know. You'll have to cast it off.
It'll have to be cast off. But, well, you just started this group about 6 months ago, and you work during the day, both of you, and you're playing this music for the pleasure of it and playing it the way you want without any pressure upon you to play in any particular way. So
Yeah, like, I mean, you can play whatever music we like. We don't have to commercialise it too much, you know. Thank God we have the option of doing that, you know.
Well, I tell you, we're looking forward to hearing some more of the music, and it was great having you on the show, and we'd love to have you back again sometime.
Well, it's very,
Thanks, we had a
thanks
great
very much
time.
for having
Thank
us,
you,
Martin.
Sean,
Fair
and
play, you know.
thank you, Mary.
Man.
Good evening. Irish Prime Minister Charles Haughey completed his visit last week to the U.S., where he made valuable contacts on Wall Street for his government's new financial services center in Dublin, which is hoped to prove a major financial boost to Ireland's economy. But upon his return to his homeland, Haughey was barraged with criticism, saying that he gave a negative attitude towards the Anglo-Irish agreement in his New York and Boston speeches. He was also criticized for not specifically condemning violence to his Irish-American audiences. Mr. Haughey found these attacks to be quite absurd and that the agreement would be worked to the fullest. In regards to not condemning violence, Mr. Haughey felt that by doing so, he would be insulting his audiences. Mr. Haughey's speeches were given in a respectable section of the business community, people who never have anything to do with violence. Mr. Haughey feels his trip to the U.S. was successful. He met all the people he wanted to meet and found a favorable attitude towards Ireland. Gaelic Exhibitions, Inc. have been transmitting the All-Ireland Finals, Ireland's premier sporting events, for over 15 years. But John Fitzgerald, spokesman for Gaelic Exhibitions, Inc., says plans are in the works to bring, via satellite, even more Gaelic games to the U.S. from Ireland. Last year, the All-Ireland semi-final and final games in hurling and football were seen in the U.S. via satellite, but it has been announced that the provincial final games will also be available this year. It has also been announced that the 10-minute halftime interval will be donated to Irish organizations promoting Ireland. Fitzgerald said it is Gaelic Exhibitions' contribution to donate this international satellite time to promote and make better known Ireland to millions of Americans. Sun Laboratories, American manufacturers of cosmetics for some of the world's leading distributors, are setting up a plant in Dublin, Ireland. This plant, which will be employing up to 200 people at full production, will be the center for manufacturing and market research for the European market. Carol Dolan, a 23-year-old Galway woman, died in a mysterious car accident on April 24th. She was on her way to Gaelic Park when an eyewitness reported seeing her car swerve near Kankakee and careen into a field. Ms. Dolan, who was driving alone, was thrown from the car. No other cars were involved in the accident. Her 1982 car, which she bought only a week earlier, is being examined to try to determine the cause of the accident. Ireland's newest airline, Ryanair, is planning on making transatlantic flights probably before the end of next year, it was recently announced. Eugene O'Neill, chief executive of the airline, while speaking at the launch of the airline's new Dublin to Glasgow service, said the transatlantic flights are something we are keen to start in the very near future. It can be safe to assume that Robin Leach of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous doesn't think of Ireland immediately when asked of a wealthy country. But that's not to say that Ireland is not without its wealthy people. Arguably, many wealthy Irish people have made their money far from their native shores, which proves to a certain extent that it is difficult to amass wealth in Ireland. Ireland's wealthiest man is not Michael Smurfit of Jefferson Smurfit Group and Telecom Éireann, as one might assume. Mr. Smurfit is only worth a mere $208 million. And it's not Sir Arthur Benjamin Guinness of the Guinness Group. He's only worth approximately $160 million. Some might even speculate it might be Dunn of the Dunn store chain, but Mr. Dunn doesn't quite make the #1 spot with his $240 million. The richest man in Ireland only has Mr. Dunn beat by $80 million, according to the Irish Voice newspaper. The richest man in Ireland is none other than Larry Goodman, chairman and chief executive of Goodman International. He admits to other investments outside the meat business, but does not disclose those details. Larry Goodman, according to The Voice, is worth $320 million. Not bad for a gentleman who has 74 privately held companies. But U2 also makes the list of Ireland's richest people. U2, probably one of the best-known rock bands in the world, truly epitomizes the local boy makes good syndrome. It is estimated that the rock group of four is worth approximately $400 million. That's only $100 million each. Peanuts to Mr. Goodman. Paul Brady returns to North America this month for a short 8-day tour after an absence of over 10 years. In the last few years, Brady has collaborated with musicians like Aaron Clapton and Dire Straits guitarist Mark Knopfler, and he has played folk and traditional music as a member of the Johnstons, Planxty, and as a partner to Andy Irvine. His music is said to display the wonderful harmony or understanding between his folk past and his rock present. Mr. Brady will be in Chicago on May 21st at the Irish American Heritage Center. Tickets are available at Irish import stores and at the center by calling 282-7035. The Gaelic Park Irish Festival 88 opens the summer festival season on Memorial Day weekend, with the first thing on the agenda being the crowning of the very first Queen of the Gaelic Park Festival. 2 stages of entertainment with continuous top Irish and American acts will be featured. They will include musicians, step dancers, ceilidh dancing, and Irish bagpipe bands. Other attractions include Irish import stores, food vendors, bingo, a dart tournament, plus, of course, a red-haired and freckle contest. The event is sponsored by the Gaelic Events Club, a non-profit organization. Fest hours will be from 4 to midnight on Friday, noon to midnight on Saturday and Sunday, and on Monday, Memorial Day, from noon till 10 p.m. Chicago Gaelic Park is located at 6119 West 147th Street in Tinley Park. Do the Irish need a little help in order to have luck? Well, 160 Dewberry shoe workers in Ballinasloe, County Galway, seem to think so. The shoe company is moving 2 miles to their new plant, and they want a 34-year-old statue of Our Lady to go with them. It seems that the statue has been enshrined in the yard of the old plant and has always brought them good luck, and they want to bring that luck with them to the new plant. The bad news is that experts who have inspected the statue say it will be damaged if moved to its new site. However, the Dewberry workers who contributed a shilling a week from their wages in 1954 to build the statue are very much attached to it. It seems the only solution now is to pray for a miracle such as the one last year in Ballyspittle, and maybe the statue will move on its own accord. That's the news for tonight. I'm Mike Shevlin.
The name Dublin comes from the ancient Gaelic word meaning dark pool. The capital city is painted on the broad valley of the River Liffey, sheltered on the south by the Wicklow Hills. 1/3 of Ireland's people live here. It's a city of wide streets and airy squares, of glorious 18th century homes and fine Georgian mansions. The city has a wide choice of accommodations, from guest houses to opulent hotels, such as the stately Shelbourne. The Shelbourne has been host to royalty from around the globe. Furnishings are 19th century period pieces, inlaid writing tables, gold-wreathed mirrors, and intricate chandeliers. Dublin's public buildings are splendid and sober. On Merrion Square you find Leinster House, seat of the Irish Parliament, as well as the National Library, and the National Gallery, one of Europe's most pleasant art collections, with more than 2,000 works on view, including a major collection of Irish painters: Frederick William, Paul Henry, William Leach, and Jack B. Yeats. George Bernard Shaw is up in stone at the entrance. He claims to have spent many of his school days playing hooky in the art-filled halls, and said that he owed his education to the National Gallery. Shaw bequeathed 1/3 of his estate to the gallery, and when his play Pygmalion was produced as the musical and film My Fair Lady, the gallery was enriched enough to purchase many major works of art. England boasts of Oxford and Cambridge, the United States of Harvard and Yale. The Sorbonne is the flower of France, and Ireland's educational pride is the noble Trinity College. The college is built on the site of an old friary, and although the buildings are secure, the cobblestones in the main quadrangle shift and must be relayed every 7 years. The Trinity College Library houses 1 million printed books, over 5,000 manuscripts and codices, which make it a world-famous resource for scholars. Here is the harp of the mighty 11th century High King Brian Boru, and Ireland's most important national treasure, the Book of Kells. Its 680 pages are beautifully illustrated, the work of monks of the 8th century. It contains the Gospels. Originally one book, it was rebound into 4 volumes in 1953. A page is turned each day to show the exceptional illustrations. Of course, Dublin has its share of those warm and wonderful Irish institutions, the public houses, called pubs for short. Well, it's a soft day, and the talk in the taverns is warm, witty, and wise. The highest compliment a publican can receive is, "He draws a good pint." Some can lay a shamrock of foam that will stay in your glass through the drink. Others can lay a foamy grin on top of your glass. It's called the smiling pint. And they all serve pub grub, solid and satisfying. Pubs offer a wide range of entertainment, from traditional Irish music to jazz. Pubs are open from 10 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. in summer, with an official holy hour, closing from 2:30 to 3:30 in the afternoons. However, Old Irish law decreed that a traveler must have bed and board, whiskey for himself and oats for his horse at any hour. Dublin is alive with nightclubs and cabarets, with fiddles, spoons, pipes, and tin whistles, song fests, dance, and humor. The RTE Symphony Orchestra adds a serious musical note to the city.
Hello, my name is Peter Nolan, and I'd like to introduce to you a friend of mine, Eddie McGrady, who is a member of the British Parliament. He represents a district in the north of Ireland. He's a member of the Social Democratic Labour Party, which has been a voice for peace in that troubled country. Mr. McGrady, nice to have you in this country.
Thank you for having me.
Hope you're enjoying your trip here.
Yeah, this is my first visit to Chicago, and I must say that I'm very pleasantly surprised by the beautiful city that you have and the people that are in it, so I'd hope to return in a not too distant future again.
Tell me a little bit about your party, what it stands for, what it is trying to accomplish.
Well, generally speaking, in spite of the long name by which you introduced us, quite rightly, we represent the Irish minority in Northern Ireland that have been subjected to discrimination in the past 50, 70 years. We were formed out of the civil rights movement in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, in the late 1960s, 68, 69, and in fact we formed the party in 1970. I was a founder member, first chairman, and responsible for some of the structures that we set up then. The purpose was to give a cohesive and informed voice to the minority population in Northern Ireland, and also to achieve its political aspirations by peaceful means, and to totally do away with the need for violence which had recurred in Irish history, as you know, almost every decade. And we analysed the problem which we had in Ireland, the British presence in Ireland, and the difficulty of the two communities in the north of Ireland to live together, and engaged in a process of achieving unity of Ireland by peaceful means, because, might I make a very basic point, that the division in Ireland is not so much a line drawn on a map, two pieces of territory separated, but much more two people separated. And real unity comes from unity of people, not from pieces of land being stuck together by whatever means. So we had three basic platforms, the 3 R's, as one would say in education, but our 3 R's were reform, reconciliation, and reunification, in that order, because we needed reform in order to get reconciliation, and we needed reconciliation in order to learn to live together and to unite Ireland by peaceful means. That's a very potted sort of history of our origin.
Well, I think, what is the biggest misconception in this country that you perceive? We hear so much in the news about the violence,
Yes.
this cemetery incident, a woman being shot 40 times. Do you feel, is there a message that you would like to give to the people of the United States that they may not know about what is happening there?
Yeah, from my contacts in the States here this past while, I get the impression that many people think that the rebellion of 1916 has been fought all over again in Northern Ireland. And there are a number of what I call armchair Republicans at a safe distance of 3,000 odd miles are fighting this battle in their own minds and hearts. But in reality, what is happening is, as I said, is a small number of people who are waging a war of violence in order to unite Ireland. Now, they're waging that violence as much against the majority community in the north, i.e. the Protestant loyalist community, as they are against the forces of England. And in that, they are making it much more difficult to unite Ireland.
What do you say to people in this country who say, we've heard this before, this is just like the Middle East, they've been fighting for centuries, it's never going to end?
Well, I cannot give you an absolute guarantee that things are going to dramatically change for the better immediately. All I can do is articulate and say what my experiences are telling me and what the people that I represent, both for and against, have been telling me, and whose opinions I value, and that thrust and that drive is there. And we are determined as a party now. I mean, we have participated in so many experiments in Northern Ireland. I mean, I was a minister actually in the famous power sharing executive of 74. And then the convention of 75 and various talks. We are only too well aware of the number of failures we had in Northern Ireland. That's why we took it out of the Northern Irish context and put it onto the sovereign governments of Ireland and England to broaden that dimension. I'm quite satisfied that we're now determined to find a solution that will have the support of everybody. And that is one of the reasons that we took the enormous political risk, from my point of view, of opening dialogue with Sinn Féin, which is the political wing of the IRA. I mean, I'm totally and irrevocably opposed to violence in any form. But we did that at grave risk to our own political reputations in order to try and break that mould of violence. And we're now will be talking unilaterally to the unionist parties, that is the loyalist parties, to do the same, and creating a round table conference where all the main participants will, we hope, be represented, and then what comes out of that will have the support of the vast majority of people. And then we would hope that whatever that solution is, and I'm not putting any particular confines on it, would be addressed by a referendum of the people, both in the north of Ireland and in the south of Ireland, so that after that referendum no one will be able to claim that they're speaking for the people of Ireland, because the people of Ireland themselves, north and south, will have spoken.
We've just got a few minutes left.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your home in Ireland, what it's like?
Right. Well, if I was to say I'm from Paddy's land, it would not be a new thing. but literally speaking, I am from St. Patrick's Land, in that my hometown is a place called Saul, which is the old Gaelic Savile for barn, and St. Patrick landed on the hill I live on in 432, 15 centuries ago, and he's buried in the town of Downpatrick, which is just the town nearest to me, 2 miles away. It's a constituency, an area I represent about 800 square miles, and I must insist it's the most beautiful part of Ireland. It includes the Mourne Mountains, which you may have heard of, and is an evenly divided community, roughly half and half. And strangely enough, because I like to think of our activities, and hopefully my activities in some measure, is a relatively peaceful community in spite of that very narrow divide. And that's because we have always had an appreciation of the other fellow's viewpoint. We have never allowed sectarianism to divide our communities. And that's the type of place I represent. I first fought to the Westminster seat, which is the Parliament at London, for my constituency, which had been represented by the Unionists for almost 100 years. And I won the seat on June the 12th. So, and some of your listeners may know the holder of that seat was a man called Enoch Powell, who had been a British minister, an arch-sectarian, anti-black type of person who came over from England as a, what shall I call, carpetbagger? Carpetbagger. And there was great delight when we finally defeated him and sent him back. So, whatever.
Was it a real bang-up campaign like we have here in Chicago?
Well, it was not dissimilar in many ways at the end of the day. I fought him in 83, he had a majority of 4,500 out of 90,000. 86, he had a majority of 2,500, and we squeezed him with a majority. I now have a majority of 751 out of 90,000 electorate, an 80% poll. So it was a very intense campaign. Give a tremendous boost to ourselves as a party, to Northern Ireland as a whole, and indeed to Ireland. It was amazing the reaction of sending this one Brit home by the electoral process that could never be achieved by the gun, and that's the lesson that people also learned.
Well, congratulations, and I appreciate you coming here with us today. Nice to have you in this country. I hope you come back soon.
Thank you very much.
And good luck in your next election.
All right, well, it's a few years away, but I have a lot of work to do between now and then. I'm very pleased to be here. Your country's really beautiful, and so is Chicago as a city, and you're not doing enough to promote it.
Thank you, Mr. McGrady. I'm Peter Nolan. Thank you for joining us.
Well, our news crew has obviously been as busy as ever. Remember, every week we're going to be having these special reports on events in Ireland for you.
Still to come tonight, we have sports from Eamonn Kelly.
And a special treat for all of you Andy O'Driscoll fans.
But now it's time for another lively set from Blarney Pilgrim.
This is Eamonn Kelly with a review of Irish sports. Ireland's top Gaelic football and hurling athletes have returned home after their 2-week United States tour. The hurling and football All-Ireland champions and Bank of Ireland All-Stars played a 2-game series with the opening games in Boston and the second leg in San Francisco. Overall, the tour has been described as a very successful one, with the standard of play much improved over previous years. The games in Boston were especially impressive. In football, the All-Stars defeated All-Ireland champions Meath by 3 points, 1 goal and 16 points to 1 goal and 13, in a very entertaining game before 4,000 people. The hurling games between All-Ireland champions Galway and the All-Stars also provided excellent entertainment, with Galway winning by 8 points, 1 goal and 19 to 1 goal and 11. Galway was in great form, producing a high standard of hurling reminiscent of that seen in the epic All-Ireland semi-final against Tipperary last August. In San Francisco last Sunday, the hurling All-Stars turned the tables on Galway with a 7-point victory, 4 goals and 18 points to 1 goal and 20. Given that the tournament is a 2-game series decided by aggregate scores, Galway won the tournament by 1 point. The football All-Stars continue to have the edge over Meath with a 2-point victory, 1 goal and 9 points to 10 points, giving them an aggregate margin of 5 points to win the tournament. As in the previous game in Boston, Larry Tompkins of Cork was brilliant, scoring a personal tally of 1 goal and 7 points, which gives him a tournament total of 1 goal and 17 points, certainly a great achievement for a touring All-Star. Now that the athletes have returned to Ireland and the provincial championships are underway, fans and officials of the reigning All-Ireland champions are concerned with the effects that the long tour had on the players. It is common knowledge that the players have to submit to an itinerary that is fast-paced and socially demanding. Many of the players usually returned from the States to Ireland exhausted and not fully prepared for a championship battle. With that in mind, speculation and early forecasting is the general theme of conversation at this time of the season in Gaelic sports circles all over Ireland. Speaking of speculation, the Dublin bookmakers have installed Tipperary as favourites at 5-2. That's for the big hurling title this year, and they will fall back behind, or should we say in front of Galway, who are second at 3-1. But Cork and Kilkenny faced, or should we say placed, at 7-2 odds. In football, Kerry, despite their early exit from the championship last year and a dismal showing in this year's league, are surprisingly tipped as favourites to win the All-Ireland at 5-2 odds. Dublin is second favourites at 11-4, with Meath, the current champions, quoted at 3-1. Speaking of Meath and Dublin, they will face each other next Sunday in Croke Park for the long-awaited National Football League final replay. And don't forget the big Irish Fest coming up in Gaelic Park over Memorial Weekend starting on the 27th of May, where we will have all the various entertaining groups from Ireland and across the United States. It's a 4-day festival well worth coming to see. And of course, every Sunday out at Gaelic Park, the normal local hurling and football games will be on display. And this is Eamonn Kelly saying good evening with another review of Irish sports.
Good evening. I'm Bridge Looney, and I'm here this evening to share with you the upcoming events at the Irish American Heritage Centre. In addition to our regular scheduled events, we have new and exciting programs weekly. Remember, we are here to serve you. So whenever you have an occasion to have a party or a celebration, just call us here at the centre and we will provide you with the perfect hall at a reasonable rate. Our office hours are 9 to 4 daily, and the phone number here is 282-7035.
When last we featured singer Andy O'Driscoll, he spoke to Martin Hayes about the wealth of street ballads which were a part of his youth in Dublin City. Well, this next song epitomizes the Dublin street ballad. It speaks of hardship, of poverty, of love, but above all, spirit.
And here's Andy to sing for us The Old Triangle.
Do a little song this time by Brendan Behan called The Old Triangle. A hungry feeling came on me stealing, and the mice were squealing all in my cell, and the old triangle went jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. Early in the morning, the screws were bowling, saying, "Get up, you bowsies, and clean out yourself." And the old triangle went jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. Oh, the lag was sleeping, Humpy Gussie was peeping, as I lay there dreaming of my girl Sal. And the old triangle went jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. I wish to blazes they'd change the wages from 50 shillings to £2.10, and the old triangle went jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. In the female prison there are 75 women, and I wish among them that I did dwell, and that old triangle could go jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, I'm afraid we've run out of time once again.
A special thanks, though, to our visitors from Minnesota, Blarney Pilgrim. We certainly enjoyed listening to them. Do hope they'll be back with us again in the near future.
We hope you can join us again next week when we'll have another hour of Irish Sparkle.
Remember, if you'd like further information on some of the events listed in this show, contact the Irish American Heritage Center. That number is 282-7035. Celtic Aires are going to play us out, so until we meet again, Bonach de Lat.
Good night.